Oh boy, I've got a very special video for you today. We're going to be talking about The Mandalorian, but also Andor Season 2, the Ahsoka show. This really is two videos in one, a very exciting news update, but also, my dear friends, just to note, the next Star Wars celebration has been announced. 2025, it's going to be in Japan. I'm very pleased for the fans over there, and bear in mind, 2025 marks 10 years of The Force Awakens and 20 of Revenge of the Sith. Extremely exciting. Enjoy today's video. Star Wars Celebration has come to an end, and what a fun time it's been for all fans who could make it over to the UK. It was so amazing to hang out as fans, see all the cosplays, and of course, all of the big announcements. Well, now that it's all said and done, we turn our heads back to The Mandalorian. Tomorrow is Episode 7, Chapter 23, the penultimate episode of the third season. The big finale is next week, and both of the remaining episodes are directed by Rick Famuyiwa, and tomorrow's episode is co-written by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. The episode is a bit over 50 minutes, but it flies by. But before I go any further, I will say there are light spoilers ahead. I'm not going to go into full spoiler mode, but there are a few things I do want to tease. If you want to skip ahead, we will be talking about Thrawn, the Ahsoka show, as well as Andor Season 2. Use the timestamps on the timeline below. So the best part of this episode is we finally get some series-changing consequences. It's a thrilling ride, and the show's creators Rick Famuyiwa, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni decided to make some concrete decisions that impact emotionally the rest of the show, but also what came before it in earlier episodes. Some characters, whether they be allies or adversaries, you're going to start to see in a different light. The beauty of the next episode is it really throws some hurdles in the works for our heroes. While the restoration of Mandalore is going to take place in the final episode, they've really given us a reason to worry that that might not happen. Of course we know by the end it will, but our villains are very scary. Moff Gideon, another big feature of the next episode, makes himself known, and we finally learn who he's working for and his network of allies. There are a couple of familiar faces there. I also noticed with this episode there is a balance of all three trilogies, so the prequels, the original trilogy, and the sequel trilogy are all relevant and referenced. It's also some of the best writing the show's had so far, and I'm talking about all three seasons. So while I was on the more critical side last week, this week I'm firmly in the court of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, and just to say, tomorrow I will be doing a full episode breakdown where I can be a bit more specific. One of Star Wars' best features historically, especially during the George Lucas era, so the originals and the prequel trilogy, has been its villains. You talk about Palpatine, Darth Maul, Count Dooku, and in the Disney era, we've gotten very different kinds of villains, whether you're talking about Kylo Ren or Krennic, but when it comes to Moff Gideon, Giancarlo Esposito steals every scene he's in. When he's on screen, you want to pay attention, and yet, we know so little about his character, until now. We finally get some answers to Moff Gideon's past, but also his drive, his motivations, his purpose, and his ultimate goals. And even better, you learn not to underestimate him. He is very powerful at this stage. He has some very powerful allies. I'm not going to call them friends though, because my theory based on this episode is he's going to be double-crossed. There are some more powerful than him, but one thing made crystal clear is he's very good at planning. And so now, my dear friends, a quick update on Grand Admiral Thrawn. Did you know in production they faced difficulties bringing the character to live action? Speaking with the wrap at Star Wars Celebration, Dave Filoni discussed the challenges of what it was like to bring Thrawn into live action, specifically on the subject of his blue skin. Calling the colour blue a tricky one to bring to screen, this is what he said: "There are a lot of blue characters out there now. Cad Bane was a much debated blue. The challenge was just as great for Hera Syndulla's green skin and Ahsoka's own orange hue," leading Dave Filoni to ask why he took on such a difficult task. He then reveals that he was tasked with making Thrawn's blue less strong than animation, and he was also looking for that tone that was more deep and complex in live action, one that fits on the screen without being too jarring. He said, quote, "If the blue is very strong, it almost starts to lean too far back into animation, so you have to find a blue that has multiple layers to it, that has transparencies and a sense of blood and skin. On top of the blue skin, they had to find the perfect actor for the role, and Lars Mikkelsen, who voiced the character in Star Wars Rebels, was perfect, not just because of the voice, but the way he stands, the way he carried himself. He's an admiral." Dave says there was never anyone else for the role, it was always going to be Lars. Now, Thrawn's live-action appearance has been a hot topic of discussion amongst fans since the Mandoverse began, especially after Ahsoka name-dropped him in Chapter 13 of Season 2. But now we've seen what he looks like in the trailers, and his first live-action appearance in the show itself is going to be so anticipated when it drops, this coming August. And so now, my dear friends, we're going to be talking about Andor Season 2, the trailer shown at Star Wars Celebration. This show, in my opinion, is the best Star Wars has been in a very long time. Now, I understand there are different kinds of Star Wars, different flavors of shows. Not everything is going to be the same, not everything needs to be the same, and this is a more mature branch of it. But to me, it's just brilliant, and I think Tony Gilroy, ironically, as someone who doesn't call himself a Star Wars fan, understands the franchise really well. The flow of it, the characters, the way it kept you engaged, the dialogue, it was all fantastic, especially the world building. Well, at Star Wars Celebration, we got to see the trailer footage for Season 2. They've already cooked up a sizzle reel, and I'm very impressed. There are some new alien characters, some new senators, and we see the continuation of the stories of our rebel protagonists, all of them. A couple of things that stood out is there is a lot more romance in Season 2. If the trailer is anything to go off of, Bix and Andor seem like they're going to get back together. Bix sees him as a hero after rescuing her from Dedra Meero's clutches in the first season. On top of this, there is an intimate scene between Cinta and Vel. I think it's so excellent the way this series is showing us the hardship of war and love to contrast it, the struggles of human relationships in a time of conflict and sacrifice. That is a brilliant human plot device for a show that focuses on characters who are not Skywalkers, not part of the Star Wars royal family, so to speak, and are much more the everyday people. Now, on top of Vel and Cinta, Luthen and Mon Mothma, one of the characters I was so glad to see return is Clea Marquis. She is a cutthroat rebel to the core, willing to do whatever it takes for the greater cause. There's also exploration of Cyril Khan. We see him brushing his hair in the mirror, but some of the biggest villains of the season were not shown in the trailer. They're going to be a surprise. Now, while we don't necessarily see it in the trailer, she's still wearing her old one. Denise Goff teased in Season 2, Dedra Meero is going to be wearing a new outfit. Despite the disaster for the Empire at the Battle of Ferrix, she's been promoted, and she's probably going to be wearing the Black ISB outfit. Let's wait and see. And speaking of Ferrix, the legacy of that planet is alive and well in the second season. We do see some more uprisings, and of course, as I say, Bix plays a huge part, but there's Coruscant, there's some new planets as well, new Imperial officers, new allies, and new species. And speaking of Bix, it looks as though she has a whole subplot of her own, beyond just the old workshop on Ferrix. I'm pretty sure we're going to see her take revenge on Dr. Gorst, that monstrous, sick and twisted torturer who we saw in Season 1 employed by the Empire to oversee the torture of Bix. That guy represents some of the worst aspects of the Empire, but in this way, Tony Gilroy is really showing us some different factions of the Imperial reign, the different faces of oppression and tyranny. So while a lot of fans were asking, when are we going to see Palpatine? Is Palpatine going to be in the show? Well, he's always in the shadows. He doesn't have to be on screen for us to see what he's truly about, the way he manipulates, exploits people and their labor, and views everyone below him as a cog in his machine. I mean, think about the ways Andor Season 1 showed us the way the Empire functions outside of the big guys. So it wasn't just Palpatine, Vader and Tarkin, but also prison systems, the ISB, and for Tony Gilroy to make those interesting and worthy of a TV show really speaks to his talents as a screenwriter. And going back to Bix, there is a scene where she holds a blaster up to Dr. Gorst. She takes him by surprise and gets revenge. That guy had it coming. Even the role of someone like Luthen is evolving. In Season 1 we see him building his network of spies, and that's going to continue, but also he takes on a more active role. So he's still running his public-facing persona on Coruscant, but at the same time he's going around the galaxy and recruiting, investigating, and undergoing his own missions. Now in this way, I think tonally and in terms of genre, Season 2 is going to be much more of the spy thriller we were promised in the first season. Dare I say, Season 2 might be even better than the first, and this one connects to Rogue One. There's going to be Yavin 4, we're probably going to see some other rebels, considering the Ghost Crew are going to feature in the Ahsoka show later in the timeline first. They might be comfortable using them in Andor Season 2, earlier in the timeline before A New Hope. Andor is one of those shows I have full confidence in. For those of us who love Season 1, we have no reason to doubt Tony Gilroy's abilities, and the sizzle reel really showed he's keeping that consistency in the writing. And the vibe is the same. It's everything you love about Season 1, but somehow expanded and improved. And there's a sense of urgency. Every scene is important, there is no time wasted. You're always given a reason to care about every scene, every character, every interaction. Out of all of the trailers I saw this weekend, Ahsoka and Andor Season 2 are right at the top of that list. It's no contest. But with that said, my dear friends, share your thoughts in the comments down below of everything we spoke about. Are you excited for Thrawn? Are you excited for tomorrow's episode of Mando? And what do you think of the Andor Season 2 reveals? If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you always.